Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I have some very, very special guests. Very special guests, the Blitz Masters. Yep, these guys are repeat guests. I have some of my most watched videos feature the Blitz Masters. I have their original video linked in the description below. I have not had them on for a while because, frankly, I've been so busy with real life stuff. But I've gotten so many requests for the Blitz Masters. Everyone wants to hear their secrets. And the Blitz Masters are guys who taught me how to be a good blitzer. All right. I literally, in the first Ghost Spider Blitz, I got in the top 5. I never got in the top 100. I barely would squeak into the top 1% before I had these guys on my stream, and I learned from them. They have a whole different method that was so different than the way I learned of how to blitz, and it totally increases your score. And by the way, the reason I got this high of a score is, of course, because I've bought some offers, I had these random blitz charges that I used up. When you go to the second blitz, of course, the Blitz Masters finished right ahead of me, even though they had smaller rosters. Number 10, number 11, here they are, Stuck and Cell, the Blitz Masters. Thank you for joining us, Stuck and Cell. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us, Phil.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, okay, so I know it's been a while since you guys have been on. We got a lot of people viewing this for the first time. Let's go over the basics of your strategy, just in a nutshell. I mean, one thing that was very surprising to me that you taught me is I actually want to sit at this highest tier up here as much as possible. And so literally you had me, you taught me and everybody watching that you actually blitz from the top down and stay at 8.3 as much as possible. Could you explain that? Could one of you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the point multiplier at 8.3 is the highest, and really to maximize, and this is really about efficiency. So you're trying to score the highest you can always. So you don't want to drop, you don't want to go to 8, you don't want to go to 6, you don't want to go any further down. You always want to stay at 8.3. And you can start at the top of your roster, the bottom of your roster. Most of us start at the top because losing at the top is more costly. But then you want to work down through your entire roster, as many teams as possible at 8.3.
Right. So what I generally do now, since I learned your strategy, is I'll climb up initially. I used to, the way I was taught when I was a new player, there's these content creators who said you drop down, to go to a lower tier and then go from a lower tier to a higher tier. But ever since I learned from you guys, I sit here at 8.3. I'll use my number 1 team, number 2 team, and so on until and if, let's say, I don't find a good matchup for the XFactor, let's just say hypothetically, then I will keep going downward. And one thing you guys taught me was I want to have all my blitz teams in in order from largest in terms of TCP to the smallest. Why do you want them ordered in that fashion?
I found it easier when having it sorted like that to jump between the reset tiers, so that way you can easily jump to the next team by going down a few times on your roster. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it. That worked for me.
Yep. Well, so here's what he means by this. Is an important point that you may not understand. So see how I have Black Order and I'm facing the X-Men here, right? If I go down here and I go to my Shadowland, it's going to keep me with the X-Men here because they're basically the same strength. And so it's going to keep me at the same strength level. But if you go down low enough, see, I'm still with the X-Men. But see, now I drop down to 700K and I get a new team. So if instead of a bunch of random X-Men, that was like Infinity Watch, I had like 3 very different, it was like 3 different Infinity Watch Eternals teams that I couldn't beat. If I go further down my list, I can pop up, I can get basically different teams, essentially. That'll give me a different selection, maybe something I can beat easier, like the silly Guardians here, that sort of thing. And then what I do is when I lose, I go down to like the lowest plausible team in my roster that could beat anything, something not hand, but something maybe in this range, and then I work my way up and get back up to 8.3. Is that the strategy essentially?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's just yep, definitely. You want to take any losses you have. You actually want to start at the bottom because the multiplier is lower, and so you don't want to give up. You've already given up points, right? Because you lost, and we're all going to lose. Yeah, don't think that if you lose that you're doing bad, but you just always want to try to win. But jump down to the bottom of your roster, climb back to 8.3 from the bottom, and then you can go back to your top and work back down.
In fact,
Now,
what I've been doing lately is going through my trouble teams first instead of starting at the top. So
okay,
it's something to consider too.
oh, that's super advanced. That's super advanced. See, these guys know, like, if you're wave one, always lose or something. Then you go to the wave one first and find like the best matchup, find hand or something, and like keep waiting until you get hand for that team, so you get 0
Exactly.
losses. Okay, that's genius level. Every time I do a video with you guys, I learn some new level of blitzing. I always thought blitzing was just about TCP, it was all about the size of your roster. I'm telling you guys, Stuck and Cell always are in the top 100 of every blitz, and they don't have a top 100 roster. They're not even close to the top 100. They're much smaller than me. They're smaller than me, and I'm not close to the top 100. So they're able to do it with stuff like that. You guys also, I think, manually play certain matches, right? Do you still do that?
Not anymore.
Well, one thing that I do think helps a lot, one secret that I've learned that I imagine you guys already know because it's very little that I learned that I figure out about blitzing that you haven't already figured out, is one thing that they don't take into account really is ISO strength that much. And so if you find it, you can find a team with no ISO, and that will be a lot easier than the teams with it. It seems like the enemy teams are not normal. Like the ISO is not factored into how strong they are. You can see this is 482, 490, 453. And the non-ISO teams often are easier, even if the team would otherwise be harder.
Yeah, that's very true. There's an algorithm for how they're generated and the relative team power, right? Because who Silster there is, that's probably not how any of his characters are set up, but the composition of his team is that. So that's part of the algorithm. Part of the algorithm is the ISO. There's a lot of components to it, but like you said, if you're missing ISO, back when I think we did our first video, it was less of a factor, but it's definitely a factor now. So paying attention to that's very important. Also, one thing like Cell, I don't play as many matches as Cell. I mean, we both don't play as many matches, but one of the advantages to playing your match is when you're building your teams. So if you want to understand if this comp is going to work, play it and get a feel for the turn order, what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And the only way you can do that is by playing it and not simming it. And then that'll let you know if the new team comp that you're building is going to work.
Yeah, I think a good example of that is the Peter Pim team you did. You played that a lot to test it out.
Yeah, that's correct. It was a theory, and then it was like, all right, well, let's try it out. And then it turned out that it was incredibly good, and I didn't know until I played it.
Yeah, one thing that if you're new to the game, you probably, you may not realize as much. I know that once you hit a certain level, you just click the sim button and you just let it all go that way. But, you don't have to do that. In fact, for most of the time you and I, the three of us have been playing, you couldn't sim, right? And you had to play these things out manually. It was actually a big grind that you used to have to do. And knowing the matchups, knowing what teams counter what is a huge part of maximizing your blitz score. And really, if you're newer to the game, if you're not familiar with every matchup and how every team works, actually playing is really going to help you. That's actually how you're going to learn what counters what and what are good matchups for your team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, back in the day before Sim, me and Stuck were both big blitzers, and we learned all the matchups because of blitzing.
Yeah, I think that that's the best way in many ways to learn how the teams work. You have no timer, you have no pressure, and in a blitz like this, right now I'm doing, this is the Falcon blitz we have right before the big Star-Lord T'Challa blitz coming. This is the sort of blitz where you could test teams out. This is actually, I think, one of the best ways to test your teams against a variety of other teams. Now, one other thing that's very important is maximizing your roster. So I know some of you are watching this, Philosopher, you get some massive roster. Of course, your top whatever. These Stuck and Cell, yeah, they probably have big rosters too. What about me? I got 2 million TCP, or I'm a mid-game player, or whatever it may be. I'm free to play. you can get the most out of your roster in blitzing too. This is important, more important if you're free to play or on a limited, you very a light spender or newer to the game, because getting the shards this is the best way of doing it. I know, I'm sure for the two of you guys, isn't it an automatic 200 shards whenever there's a new character that's blitz released? Like it is for me, right?
Automatic 242 shards and 4 red star.
Right. And so, and if you're free to play, that saves you some red star orb opening as well, right? I mean, you're getting 4 red stars there. If you have limited red star orbs, you use them elsewhere. So I think it's actually very important. And a big part of this is how you split up your teams. Now, I will tell you guys that I get requests all the time for people like, can you tell us what your blitz, like what the blitz team should be? Just tell me how to split up my roster. One thing that I find, and I'm interested, Sel and Stuck, if you agree, that in some ways it's roster dependent. And here's what I mean. Like you'll see for me sometimes, I'm sticking Namor here, not because Namor works well with these 4, but because he's built large and he isn't very good outside of war. And so I'm getting sort of the value of his TCP there or whatever his character power. But if you had built up a massive Miss Marvel or whatever, some other random character, you had a massive Kingpin, maybe you throw him there or whoever just to get the value of that character with a bigger team that you've built.
Yeah, it's always going to be roster dependent. Sometimes folks just kind of want an answer or they want a direction. So they'll ask what I have, and we get that a lot, and that's okay. But it depends on how you build things. Now more than like 8-10 months ago when we did the first video, carries matter, right? Carries are much more prevalent and can transform your blitz teams significantly, more so than meta teams, like building the whole team did. So if you can raise up your Infinity Watch, you can bust them all out, break them into carries. For the most part, you have at least 3 or 4 strong carries there, duo carries, things like that. So when we submit our rosters and we show them to people, we want it to be kind of inspirational, like to help, right? Because we're not the only ones coming up with this stuff. There's a lot of good people are coming up with their own stuff, especially in your channel, and in our alliance. We all talk about it. We get teams built together, but it is roster dependent, right? If you don't have what I have, then it may not work for you. So you want to take the concepts of what we talked about in the guide and then just apply them to what your roster has.
Yeah, just to be crystal clear for people who are watching, like let's say you're at the gym and you're listening to this and you're like, wait, what's a carry? What do you mean by that?
So a carry is a character who's so good, and there's several types of carries. They're so good they carry all 4 people on their own. A good example is like Doctor Doom. Ultron is another good example, and you can have relatively low power tunes with them. It doesn't matter; they're going to win the match because they win. Then there's other types of carries, like I put Moondragon in my Mercs, and it's not that she's carrying the team; it's that she's filling a hole that they don't, like a weakness that they have, right? Because they're really strong in war, and mine are smaller, so it just made sense for me to put her there. Those types of carries are things that make a team that may have struggled before just win, right? It just wins now. And so they're very, very important. They actually are transforming the way Blitz. They're allowing us to go as wide as possible.
Yeah, and so what I think we should do, and I think that this is going to be very helpful for folks. What I'll do is, now that I see that you guys are super innovative, I'm going to show my amateurish attempt to do this first on my Blitz squads. Then we'll show yours, because this way people can see, like, oh, they'll think, oh, philosophers learn their lessons, and then they'll probably drop their jaws at what you guys are doing, because I wouldn't have even thought to break up my Infinity Watch. Okay, I keep them all together. So when you look at my Blitz teams, I get people asking me all the time to show them mine. These are like amateur hour compared to the two of you. I've got my Infinity Watch together, my Weapon X together, my symbiotes together, Heroes for Hire together. They're all in the order based on power. XFactor with Namor just because he's large and he's carried by them. But I've got, this team together, which you probably wouldn't do. You'd probably throw Phoenix elsewhere, maybe not. I don't know. But this team beats everything, it seems like. Axemen, Black Order, Shadowland. But then I start doing what you guys would do. My Wave 1 suck. I haven't built out the full team, and so the Eternals help out Wave 1, although you guys might split them up. I've got, the new Warriors with 2 bozos who are propped up by them. Just filler. The biggest filler I can find. Essentially, these are the most spare parts that I have. And then I got Web Warriors. Marauders were having some problems, so Dormammu carries the Web Warrior or the Marauders, which are big, but not awesome. I got Skill Military. It's kind of a shaky team, but I keep them together. Mercs, I throw Shuri in, and they seem to do okay, but they sort of not. I have some big red stars on them, so they've been okay. I have Silver Surfer with Supernatural because I have a small Elsa and he carries them. We've got Secret Avengers with some garbage. Sinister Six, X-Force, Inhumans. This is sort of like a Hydra mix, sort of. I throw Drax in there just because. You got the Marauders, who now I guess they moved up there. And then I got Shield with Kestrel because she carries them, makes them a lot better. This team with She-Hulk actually seems to do very well. Brotherhood, Doom carrying a bunch of garbage. Yeah, and then Young Avengers, and we're starting to get to the crap of my roster. Asgardians, Pym, Technerva, because the Guardians don't seem to win on their own. Hydra, Aimtron, and then Power Armor, and then these are teams that I don't use. I just use for climbing purposes. This is, I regard, amateur hour. You can see me trying to apply the Blitzmasters concepts, but it's sort of amateur. Blitz is not my focus. My roster carries me probably more than my Blitz mastery does because I'm not the Blitz master. So let's look at your rosters. I don't. You can critique I don't think the critique will be nice. When you see what Stuck and Cell have done, you guys are going to see that mine is sort of amateurish in comparison. So let's go to Stuck's first, just because I happen to click you first. And actually, Stuck, you have 2 separate documents. So the first one here, I'm going to show you. These first teams are what you call the Blitz charges teams. So what is the Blitz charge? What does this mean? The Blitz charge teams versus the non-Blitz charge teams. Help me understand that.
Sure. The Blitz charge teams we put together, and this was back in the other video too, is all it really is it's your highest powered teams or characters. You'll notice like Team 2 isn't the team, but it's the components of where they're broken out in their carries. So they're slapped into one team. And these are the ones you want to use your Blitz charges on. The idea is if you're going to burn charges, you always burn them on the highest powered teams you have first. And I have, I think, 6 or 7 in here, and it's pretty significant. But they range from 911 to like 775, and that's allowing me to have 1 tier break, so that in case all 3 matches are bad for the 911, I can get it on the 775. But you burn these teams top down first because you want to. The whole idea is maximizing efficiency and score, so you always use these teams for that purpose.
Wow. So now this is, this I can see very, what you've done is the carries, the concept of the carries, this is so much more advanced than what I do. Okay. So just so everyone understands, I'm blowing my Blitz charges just on my big teams because I'm keeping my big teams together. I keep my Infinity Watch together all the time, but you guys will spread them out. And here I can see what you've done is you've taken some of your big characters like Silver Surfer and Doom and everything. You just stuff them all together in one team to create super teams. So if you have a limited number of charges, I think this is really important if you're free to play and you only have the 500 charges. What ends up happening for me, guys, just for what it's worth, is I'll buy sometimes the raid energy offers because I need more raid if we do a lot of raiding. And it comes with some Blitz charges, and then they just pile up because they have so few Blitz releases. So I'll end up having the rare time when there is a Blitz I care about, then suddenly I end up using them. But, particularly if you only have 500, the amount that everyone's going to have, you want to use them like this. This is much more efficient than what I do. Like this is genius. That's why these guys are the Blitz Masters. So this is they basically take all their best characters, biggest characters, as you say, biggest and best, and you put them together from a separate team, and then your other set of teams incorporates these characters into them. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, and so like Infinity Watch for the most part is broken out. So is Team 2, 3. I mean, the idea for me, and especially for a lot of the people listening, is they're going to have lower rosters. We might not have the highest carrying characters or the other characters that are part of these groups, so they need help. And the best way to do that is to diversify your roster. What might feel like you want to keep Weapon X together, it might not be the best thing for you because you don't have the resource to invest in everything else. The other thing that I do use Blitz charges for is if I get towards the end of a cycle and I have 2 or 3 teams left, maybe in different tiers, and they're all poor choices, I don't want to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go grab my Blitz charge, I'll burn a Blitz charge, and I'll reset my 3 matchups for what I have left. So I'm not losing out on points, but I'm making it easier for me to win with the rest of my cycle. And that's I think this last Blitz I had really great luck. I think I had 7 perfect runs because I utilized that type of mechanic, which is save the charges, burn them for resets, and maximize your points.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think I talked to one of you who said like you had like a perfect run through your entire one of the Gwen blitzes. And I was just like you went through the entire blitz without losing. That's amazing to me because I don't lose one every round, but I'll lose one. I'll lose a few per blitz at least. I mean, I've never had a perfect blitz where I've never lost anything ever. That's very impressive. And this helps to see why. If you get in a tough spot, you use one of your super teams, move on. Now let's look at your regular team. So this is Stux Teams, and I'm going to have these. By the way, everyone, the original video that they did that's much longer and their text guide are both in my Discord, which is linked below. I do link their video below as well. And their teams are also on my Discord, okay? So you can just go and find their teams. I do try to update them from time to time. The point of this is your roster is going to be different. Don't just copy their teams. It's to inspire you to use their analysis and insight to try to do the best you can for your roster in sort of like the silly, imperfect way I did for mine. So Stuck, why don't you, if you can walk through these teams and explain just what you were doing here, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the team building, I take advice, right? I don't have all the answers. So I speak with a lot of my alliance mates. I speak with Cell, and actually on your Discord, there's a good community over there of people who are varying powers, right? 12 million, 15 million, 18 million that don't have the same experience as me, and they're sharing their ideas too. So it's important to draw from the community, and then build around that. So at the start of my symbiotes, there's no reason to break them up. I'm not saying they can't carry, but it's just that given my roster, it makes sense to leave them as they are. But you'll notice that Astonishing is broken up and Uncanny is broken up. In fact, I got Uncanny and Astonishing across 3 or 4 teams. And the reason for that is so Beast is missing from that one. And I just slapped in some, I got some defense up there, right? Turn 1, because they just don't need it. They don't need Beast. Instead, Beast is sitting with the Uncanny team, which is, yeah. And they don't have Phoenix. They don't have, they don't have Colossus because they don't need them. This team has been changed by Magic. Magic is the catalyst, and actually Storm's really the driver, and I would say Cyclops is the finisher. Because Beast right there, what he actually does is if you auto this match, you'll see it. Beast will give offense up right before Cyclops ults, and so it allows it to finish. Now, the survivability would be the question here, right? Well, nope. Magic applies. You get plenty of defense up. You get barrier. It just isn't an issue. And so that team wins no problem. I have no issues with that. Instead, Colossus and Phoenix are by themselves. So
very interesting because Phoenix and Colossus are a duo that could carry some weaker members. So let's see. So we talked about the Astonishing X-Men and Uncanny, Black Order you keep together. You have to for the gems. You need Thanos to get all the gems to get empowered. Shadowland stays together. And they're not as powerful outside of war, so I feel like you kind of need that. So Eternal Naturals. So what's the thought process there? You got Namor thrown in there as well.
Yeah, Namor, same kind of idea as you had, which is Namor doesn't do a whole lot on his own, especially outside of war. I mean, he's a great war character still, but and you can break up Icarus and Circe. I know a lot of people do. For me, it didn't make sense. Primarily because I don't want to play them, right? I want to, or they just, my roster didn't fit it. I still think you can auto them, no problem, but I threw some Mystics in with them because they synergize and call it a day, right? I mean, that's an auto win. We all see how powerful those two are.
For sure. They can basically carry anything. I think in mine it's just 3 randos with them. And then here you have something OOTO and Daughters. I don't know why you call it that way, but it's basically Guardians plus the 2 sisters here because, of course, Gamora does get the passive bonuses from Star-Lord.
Yeah, there's enough synergy that made sense, right? Exactly that. And just Nebula and Gamora is always needed to get Gamora to empower. And it's over at that point. And plus, she's 85 and 6 red stars. So that definitely helps. But it's a carry team. Again, this is about building as many things as possible so you don't have to think about them.
Yeah.
Right? You win and you move on.
Yeah, that is a very smart way of making your Guardians better. Mine is a fairly low-end team that I just use, pretty late, in my run. And this is a much stronger team that I would imagine could beat almost anything. Here I notice you have Heroes for Hire with Jessica Jones instead of Shang-Chi. Can you explain that choice?
Yeah, the Heroes for Hire actually win well on their own. There's a few things you want to look out for because obviously, using Shang-Chi is so good, but he's a carry. And I know a lot of people probably aren't using him that way, but there is no question that he's a carry. In fact, I ended up breaking up my X-Force because they're another good war team, but they really started to struggle. And so there was no point to keep them together anymore. So X-23 and Negasonic with Shang-Chi, and it's just that's one of my better teams that I was really surprised about, but I probably shouldn't have been because he's so good.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so I don't have. This is where this is very roster dependent, guys. Just so everyone understands, my Jessica Jones is level 1, so there's no. She would never be my 5th. Now maybe you could throw any 5th in with the Heroes for Hire, but I don't have. You could see with my roster when we were going through it, I don't have a lot of good G13, G14 filler characters because most of mine are newer. Most of mine are the newer characters that are at that level. So it would be me throwing like a G11 character, Gear Tier 11 character here. So it's a little bit different for my roster. Similarly, I'm less enthusiastic about carrying my Guardians because they're all Gear Tier 11 versus Gear Tier 13. This is where I'm just trying to get everyone who's watching to understand how how your roster has to fit the strategy. In other words, Stuck is doing something that works for his roster and the way it is. Now, a lot of these ideas I think can be applied elsewhere, to your roster as well. And frankly, Cell's going to have a lot of similar ideas, even though his roster is different, and because these guys share so many ideas. But the point is, don't just blindly copy their teams. You need to look at your roster and make the decision that works for your roster. Now, I see here you broke up Weapon X to put Sabretooth with Marauders because you were having the same issue I was, which is that Marauders weren't winning so well on their own.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a stroke of luck, right? I mean, I have a 7 red star Sabretooth that I got lucky and pulled. But if you autoplay this, it's ridiculous how good he is. I mean, his rework was significant. So same problem you had. They just weren't doing so good, and I said, you know what? Keeping Weapon X together doesn't make sense for my roster, but it sure makes sense popping him in there and then putting everybody else in other places.
Very interesting. Whereas I just threw Dormammu with the Marauders. Different roster, different solution. Okay. Similar, though, thing with XFactor. You threw in the biggest schlub you could. That's just like, I mean, Korath's just along for the ride, right? While XFactor auto the opposing team, basically.
Yeah, he's pretty much watching from the sidelines. I needed to break up Kree. Kree just, even the best of the Kree just wasn't good enough for me. And in some cases, for people that may not have as wide a roster, the best Kree team, it's probably the solution. But for me, it wasn't. So I slapped him in here and called it a day.
Yeah, that's another roster dependent. That's a very roster dependent thing. All right, we're going to go now to the second column here. So let's see. All right, so Weapon Force. We've got X-Force with a couple Weapon X characters. Did they make that much of a difference?
It was like it was one of these things where I needed to put Weapon X with somebody, and I already had to break up X-Force, and this made sense. And of course, you can put in Negasonic or X-23, but they don't need it. Lady Deathstrike is really, really good, and Silver Samurai is going to hold it off. So even if the X-Force characters die, it really doesn't matter, right? The Weapon X team is going to carry it the rest of the way. But what I find is they actually do survive, so it helps.
Interesting. And then what I see here is you have 3 shield members. You have Coulson, Trooper, Medic, with Captain Sam and Sharon Carter, and you've taken out Maria Hill, so you don't even keep the Secret Avengers together.
Nope. And that was one I would love to break them up more, but really either Maria and Captain Sam should stay together, but Maria can fill the gap in Wave 1. And actually, she surprisingly does it well because the talk mechanic between Captain America and Hulk. So this made the most sense. It gives a little bit more damage with Coulson, but Sharon Carter's a beast. She rips everything apart, and obviously nothing gets through Sam. So this team works really well.
Interesting. And then here you have Power Armor with Wolverine. So this is more of the breakup of Weapon X. He's helping to keep the otherwise sad Power Armor afloat.
Yeah, Power Armor. Power Armor's deficiency almost always is they either don't get everything dead in their second turn because the turn orders are goofy, right? But what Wolverine offers here is he's going to open up with a special. And usually that drops quite a bit of people to half, which is going to cause taunts, which is going to let Falcon to do his ult, which it's over. This team is a no-brain or a no-thinker anymore. It's an auto win, and they almost all live too, which is a little surprising. But I mean, not too much because Wolverine really is that good.
Interesting. Now, and then I see instead of keeping the Web Warriors together, you've split off Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider here with Miles, and some of the Secret Avengers.
Yeah, the 2 next teams.
The Young Avengers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Web Brawlers and the Web Hydra team is pretty much a split up of the team with Spider-Man and another team. We'll look at it in a second, but Web Brawlers, they win without thinking. What surprised me was Web Hydra winning as easily as they do. We're all going to be trying to eventually max our Web Warriors. I know that's going to be the path that everybody takes because, it's clearly they're going to be the answer for raids.
Right.
So it was always in question, can these guys be broken up? Are they better together? Well, they're great together, no question. But this actually works really well. And it allowed me to have my Red Skull team get enhanced with, I put Zemo there, as you'll see in a second. I was really hesitant about breaking that up, but that works really well.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. And then here you have Shang-Chi with like 2 schlubs and then X-Force and Negasonic.
Yeah, that team is, I love that team. I kind of stumbled into it because I just needed to put X-23 and Negasonic, and I was thinking about a brawler team, and I decided to go away with it and just use them. It's surprising how good Hand Sentry is. I know, obviously, Shang-Chi is the carrier here, and then what happens is he goes through and he gets everybody low, and it triggers turn bar for X-23. But Hand Sentry can offer invisible to everybody, right? So that you can hide everything for a second turn, and that allows you to plow through it.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting concept here. It's just so everyone understands. Some things that they're doing here, guys, are they're taking advantage of synergies in the kit that you may not be focused on. In other words, Miles, for example, is a Young Avenger, so he has synergy with Swirl Girl and Miss Marvel. Similarly, and of course he has the synergy with Ghost Spider because they are both web warriors, and the hero, they're all hero brawlers, and so they have synergy with Miss Marvel. Similarly here, like you said, Shang-Chi goes early. He knocks people down because he's a heavy hitter. That generates X-23's passive, which gives her turn meter and so on. So there's definitely ways in which these teams are complementing each other, and this just frankly is a testament to the way in which you guys know the kits and how they work. Now, I see here on the PIM team, which is a fairly sad team and team that can have some issues, you threw Spider-Man in instead of Yellow Jacket. So explain that choice.
Yeah, this is a team I actually really love, and that's weird to say about PIM. Spider-Man is perfect here. And by the way, you can swap Wasp and Yellow Jacket. Actually, I believe Yellow Jacket fits better here overall because he will kill somebody, or he can kill somebody in the first turn. The reason this team is good is because Spider-Man does a 2-turn defense down and slow. It is enough, and the Stature and the Ant-Man are going to do a taunt. The only thing you want to survive here is Spider-Man and Ghost. That's all you really care about. But you want to augment the team as much as possible. When Ghost gets to her ult, Spider-Man's slows and defense downs, for the most part, depending on the speed of the team you're facing, are still there, which means you're going to double it, which means Wasp is now going to ult. Okay? By that time, if anything's still standing, I'd be surprised. When I was playing this team, when I was actually, I'd put it up and I'd auto, I was very shocked how good they are. And it's held. I haven't lost with them, so.
Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, the defense down, it's always been good from Spider-Man. Until the rework, he was so flimsy that he was as much a liability as a strength. Now, of course, much less so since the rework. Now we have here three of the Supernaturals. You use the other two elsewhere with Cloak and Dagger. So help me understand what was going on there. Are they just carrying the 3 Supernaturals?
Yeah, it's more or less like you said before. We're trying to find some synergy, right? We don't. You want to avoid just chucking everybody together. So you get at least some Mystic synergy here. And obviously Scarlet Witch is a good advantage. I wish she was a little bit bigger, but she isn't. But she'll extend, and then you get a little bit of synergy with Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange.
Right there. So what he's explaining here is that Scarlet Witch's first turn, she's going to use an ability that extends debuffs, and of course Cloak, I imagine he goes before her since he's a newer character. He's faster, so he puts all those debuffs out. She extends them. That's really powerful. Then we have Doom Conda. Wakanda can't really beat much of anything. So I remember the last time I was talking to you guys, this is many months ago now, Wakanda was still kind of okay-ish for you. That's changed. Now we got Doom Conda.
Yeah, they can. Wakanda have been power crapped. I know some people still win with them too, because they're good single target killers. But the goal of blitzing is to play as little as possible and lose as little as possible. So I found that the loss streak was too large there, and placing in Doom made sense. The reason he's in there with Shuri is because Shuri can give him power the first turn, and he can ult the first turn and win quicker. So it's less of a threat.
Yeah, very common in War to have Shuri feeding ability energy to Doom. And here we have, you call them the Sinister 5. Yeah, that makes sense. Although there's of course, Doc Ock summons 6. So this is just a full Sinister 6 team. Nothing too tricky there. And then let's go here on the right side. So we have the Omega Red carry team. So it's Omega Red with 4 schlubs. I don't think that needs a lot of explanation. Similarly, we have Brotherhood. That's pretty straightforward. And then I see here, Phi Lavelle is the new, that's cute. That's the new BKT. Phi Lavelle is the best Kree with 4 others.
Yeah, Phyla's she's a monster. She's going to carry anything. I mean, I did, obviously I got lucky with a 7, but that's irrelevant. I'm seeing a lot of people using her at 4 or 5 reds. Same comp, same type of setup. She carries. She's very, very good.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's a little bit of synergy there with Kree, of course. She does buff them, and they buff her, so.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And then here you have Ultron with some villain tech, some one hero tech, and that's just a little bit of synergy, but it's basically an Ultron carry, right?
Yep. Not much to say about that. Plenty of synergy for it to work and to, extend buffs, all the fun stuff, but Ultron's doing the work there.
All right. And then here you say aim flip. That's because Human Torch flips debuffs into buffs, and so does Swarm, and so therefore having them with Scientist, Supreme Graviton, and so forth is not a problem. It actually helps them when Scientist Supreme debuffs them on turn 1, basically, right?
Yeah, AIM's a really hard team to buff. I definitely like Aimtron, and the only reason I'm not using it is because I need it in the other comp. But one advantage to here with Johnny is Johnny gets to his ult faster because generally the debuffs that you're passing over are slows. So he'll flip quickly. He'll do his special, and then he'll get to his ult. And the same is true of Swarm. Both of them are getting to their ults. And as we know, Human Torch doesn't get to his ult fast, right? In most matches where he's with Fantastic Four, it's much faster here. I wouldn't say this team is perfect. You have to be very selective. But if you are selective and you're not going against Purgers, it can win. It can win well if you have them built.
Yeah, exactly. And then here, Adam Warlock carry. I think that speaks for itself. Adam Warlock with 4 schlubs. We got the Ravagers. This used to be a team that would be at the very bottom of my roster, level 1, but this is, of course, now a very strong team. And then looking here at the very bottom here, I did not. Whoops. We've got event. These are some of the. So I guess I may have skipped. Did I skip some of these teams here? I must have skipped over a little bit. So you have the Fantastic Surfer here. So I stuck Silver Surfer with Supernatural. You split up Supernatural and put Surfer with this team instead, whereas I have more or less kept my Fantastic Four together.
Yeah, Surfer wherever he's going to land is going to be good. One of the reasons I liked it is he does have some synergy with Fantastic Four because I was plucking Johnny out. I wanted damage there. I just got sick of him losing. I mean, one thing that you're going to find is that older meta war teams, especially offensive war teams, and to some degree defensive, struggle, right? Because most of their kit is built into being in war. So sometimes you got to help them out. They're too high point value. 7 red star thing. I can't afford for them to lose. And so that's why Surfer's there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Whereas for me, mine still usually win. I have my team's a little bit bigger than yours, and so I use Surfer with a different team. Skilletary speaks for itself. You talked a little bit about having Moondragon with the Mercs. Basically, the idea being that she provides some healing and defense down and other things that the Mercs could really use.
Yeah, she's an augment there. I wouldn't, I don't feel fully that she's the 5th. I think they need a 5th. It just made the most sense here, and I'm willing to bet that. I'm looking at my roster and messing with stuff every single patch, every 2 weeks or so. So it's likely she'll move out and possibly, I don't know, Echo. Something to that effect may slide in there to make that team better, and then Moondragon can actually help elsewhere. But
yeah.
This fits the need now.
Yeah, whenever I get loose characters that they don't have a character like a Silver Surfer or something, I'm thrilled to just stuff them into teams. I break up teams, as you could tell, less than the two of you guys do, but I think that's really smart. Here, this is basically another set of Kree. You've built up your Kree more than I have by a long margin, and then you just throw Deathpool in and Minerva. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, basically, Deathpool just carries the whole team, I take it.
Yep, and she's a murder machine. So, I mean, it's one of these things where she's taking control of everything, and Minerva's there to kind of help it along. The rest are just watching from the sidelines, more or less.
Yeah, now for me, I can't keep Red Skull with the minions, and then I do Zemo and his own team. I find that the Red Skull team is awesome with the minions. Like, the AI doesn't know how to beat that. They just keep targeting minions and stuff. And then Zemo is not quite as good on his own, but it's good enough for me. But you've put them together. Obviously, this team is an auto win, I assume.
Yeah, they win. And you got a good point. Like, and this another key thing about the differences in our rosters. My minions are low. I picked the war ones because I wanted to have the best war teams. So they're that's why Grenadier and Zemo are higher. But Again, it didn't need to happen. It happened to make my life easier. Do you know what I mean? So that I could,
Sure.
yeah, I want to auto. I don't want to play if I don't have to, and I don't want to worry about losses. So that's primarily the change here.
Yeah, it just shows you the difference in our rosters. I'm trying to help viewers understand so that they can make the right choice for their own rosters. You did something similar to Shield that I did, basically Shield with throwing in Kestrel. Asgard, you're keeping that together. I remember you used to put Thor with Wave 1, not anymore. You're doing what I did and keeping Asgard together. Avenger Hill, so we already talked a little bit about that, and I see you have Iron Man here, very interesting. Of course, he is a Wave 1 Avenger, so it does does have that synergy there. And you also have Inhumans together, and then this is a Phoenix carry. This is the Phoenix and Colossus we talked about before. And this shows how essentially you've turned Axemen and Uncanny into 3 teams instead of 2, basically. You've given them extra life that way, which is really nice. You allow them to basically these 3 characters get carried that way.
Yeah, it's a lot of busting up. Like you said, it's also about looking at your roster, making sure the best decisions you're making. Anybody watching this, use these as ideas, and it's a jumping point. It may not work for you. The only way you know it doesn't work for you is by trying it. And you want to build with the principles in mind. And really, every time I touch this stuff, I'm building with the principles in mind. I do 2 things. I say who's the weakest, and I set them aside. And then I look at the characters that are my teams that are really strong and see if I can break them up. And then I look at their weaknesses and their strengths. And the next step, I mean, building your roster is very important, but I would say the most important part is going through the cycle and being patient, right? You don't want to just go next sim, next sim, next sim, because that's not going to win, right? You're going to win, you're just going to lose too, right? And if you want to win more, you need to be patient. You need to understand the team comp that you built and its strengths and its weaknesses and how to properly pick the best matchup for them.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. I'm always looking for the bad teams and trying to prop them up, as you see, but I don't break up my teams as much as you guys. I think that's definitely something that I do worse than you do, Stuck. And I'm curious now when we look at Cell's team, I know we're going to see a lot of similarities. What I want to focus here, Cell, is on the differences, because I do think it's interesting and it'll help people understand how their rosters can dictate exactly the direction they go. So for you, for example, Symbiote, Shadowland, Black Order, the same. You've got Axemen with Heimdall instead, and that's just because you have a bigger Heimdall, right?
I was really annoyed with Asgardians because I had lost 3 times in a row with them or something. And I was like, I have got to do something about this. I was like, who is the worst character on Asgardians? Oh, Heimdall. I'm going to take him out and put him somewhere else. It's fairly decent size. I'll throw him with Axemen.
Yeah, I mean, but yet Stuck kept his Asgardians together. I'm just trying to help viewers understand that this is really about taking your roster and dealing with the weaknesses in your roster. You can do the same thing with Marauders with Sabretooth, and you do Gamora and Nebula with your even bigger Guardians. Oh my God, dude, the gear, all the gear on Star-Lord and Rocket. Wow.
Rocket Raccoon was my favorite, and Star-Lord. He was my first 7 Red Star. I was so excited.
Wow. Yeah, I meet so many people players who've been playing a long time who just love Rocket and fell in love with that team. And I was after that time, so I never had the love. I rushed that team hard when I first started through some bad advice. And it never was good for me because I came after they were already power crept.
My dream is that the future tech team includes Rocket Raccoon. I know it's probably not going to happen. That's my dream.
Yeah, you and a lot of players who are, day one players who've been playing a long time, thousands a day. If you've been playing 1,000 days, you really want Rocket and Star-Lord to come back. For me, it's less urgent, but he's a great character, and they are fun to play together. And one of the coolest animations still is Rocket and Groot. So here you have the Eternals carry. I notice the difference, right? Instead of in Stuck's roster, they were carrying Mystics, and he was putting his Kree in different teams. Here you have the Eternals carrying 3 of your biggest Kree.
Yeah, I was just like, these guys can carry whatever. I'm gonna put some decent sized guys with them and get some more points out of it.
Yeah, that's what I did. I have smaller schlubs, but basically the same idea. But now here with your power armor, instead of Spider-Man, it's Adam Warlock. Similar concept, carrying your you have a huge Falcon too.
It's actually Wolverine on Stux team.
Or Wolverine, yeah.
He got me onto this idea that Wolverine was a hard carry, and I was like, no, he's not. And then I threw him on like my hand team or whatever, and I was like, dude, this team has never lost. Like, I can't believe Wolverine is a hard carry now, but he is. And so I left him there, and then when we were splitting up Web Warriors, I was like, oh, I have room to move Adam Warlock to Power Armor now. So that's what I did.
It works. Similar concept, just different characters in different spots.
Yep.
Similar Weapon X carry. I think this is pretty much a similar team.
Yeah, it's the same team he runs.
Mm-hmm. Same Brawlers team.
He has Captain Marvel and
that's right. You have America Chavez. Yeah. Similar concept though.
It still wins.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great team.
Yeah, whereas on my roster, this wouldn't work because my Miss Marvel's Gear Tier 11 or something. My America Chavez is Gear Tier 10. Like, it doesn't... It would be fine, but it doesn't...
It would probably still work because Ghost Spider and Spider-Man are carrying it hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. And my Squirrel Girl's bigger than yours, so my Squirrel Girl would be doing that as well. All right, now let's go to the next row. I'm going to go to the top here. So this is Phoenix. Now, in yours... Phoenix, you have X-23 and Negasonic. Like, you know, Stuck had this team where he had like Shang-Chi with them. You've got Phoenix and Colossus. Explain your idea there.
Yeah, I was just looking for a place to put X-23 and Negasonic, and I figured since they were mutants, I'd throw them with Phoenix and Colossus.
Yeah, why not? And X-23 is an X-Men. I don't know whether it matters or not.
Neighbor's just a leftover. He's useless, but, you know, the team works well.
Same with mine. He's along for the ride. Now, the Asgardians, you threw in Minerva. How does she help the Asgardians?
Yeah, like I was saying, I was so annoyed with them, like, losing 3 times in a row or whatever. So I threw at Heimdall, threw Minerva in, because I figured she'd get some synergy with all the Gregs dying, then she'd be healing up the team.
And did it work?
Oh, yeah. It's worked out great. It's way better now.
Wow. Well, I imagine Hella Might could also spread her bleeds. I don't know if that turn order works right or not. But wow, that's interesting. All right, Moonstare, same thing here. Moondragon with the mercenaries, the Kestrel shield, Secret Avenger shield, Sam, and yep, that's the same thing there. Cloak and Dagger, same. I think
very similar.
Very similar. Yep. Yeah. XFactor, now you get Iron Man here. It's just he's a junk character schlub who gets thrown in, basically.
Yeah,
same as my name.
After I took him out of Power Armor, I was like, oh, where should I put Iron Man? I was like, I guess I could put him with Wave 1, but I was like, kind of like Captain Marvel, they're better. She's better than Iron Man. So I was like, I'll just leave her there. And then I was like, well, where am I going to put Iron Man? I was like, well, he gives crit chance on his passive, and I have that extra slot, and XFactor, so I was like, I'm just gonna throw him in there.
Yeah, I think you can throw anybody in with the XFactor and they win.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Web Warrior. Okay, so here's the other Web Warrior carry. I think Stuck did something similar, maybe different characters with them.
It's the exact same team comp. When we were looking at breaking up the Web Warriors, like he said, we were like, what are the teams we've been struggling with? And Hydra Zemo was not necessarily one of those teams, but we were having issues with the
Red Skull
team. Yeah, like both of us were like, we got to fix this. So we're like, Stuck was like, let's put Zemo there with Grenadier, and then I was like, okay, well, we could probably put Spider-Punk and Scarlet Spider with the rest of that team because Kingpin will give them offense up before they do their alts, so that could help like get them through. And sure enough, it does pretty well. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best team or anything, but it it does pretty well.
Gets it done. That's interesting. Yeah, I have no trouble with my red skull. It's interesting the differences, right? For Fantastic Four Doom, he had, I think, Silver Surfer, similar concept though, right? A hard carry with this team, not working well for you otherwise. Okay, mine has worked better. I think mine are much bigger. I mean, my Invisible Woman is teal. She's gear tier 16, and then I got a gear tier 14.
It's much less having to worry about finding a weak team with him now that Doom's on it.
Yeah.
Pretty much just choose any team almost.
Pretty
Hit
much.
Sam and it's done.
My Doom is literally just random characters. Okay, you got Jessica Jones there as well. Mine's at level 1, so different there. And then, okay, yep, we got the Hydra team. We've already talked about Spider-Man with the Pym. We talked about Skill Military. Maria Hill. So you've got Captain Marvel instead of Iron Man. That's really the only difference here.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes this team better. And then this team looks to be the same. Sinister Six is the same. Now
yeah, I was surprised about the that X-Men team when Stuck told me about it. I was like, oh, they're not going to survive. But sure enough, they do really well.
This one here, the Beast one?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if you told me Magic works well without Phoenix, I mean, I guess she does. She gives charges to Storm and Cyclops, but very interesting. Yeah, I can see why that would work better. Now the Omega Red carry, it's very similar to what Stuck did, and Omega Red is just solo amazing, right?
He is. He carries everything.
Yeah. And so I think he used Doom. It's really the same concept. Here's Surfer, same concept, carrying a bunch of schlubs. And then, let's see, Inhumans, Phi Lavelle carrying the rest of the Kree, similar concept.
Yeah, I was really surprised, too, when you told me that she was a hard carry. I was like, nah. And then she's never lost. It's amazing.
That's great. And there's synergy here. She's got the Kree tag. That was something the devs put in late after some grumbling from us. Yeah. So that was good. And then Wolverine, you talked about him carrying hand. That's amazing to me. Okay, I didn't realize Wolverine was that good. I do recommend him for new players because they get him so easily. Throw him on their starter team, and wow, he's that good.
It shocked me how good he was at carrying that team.
That's awesome. And then we got Brotherhood, Deathpool, similar carry. The same team with AIM. Ravagers we've talked about. Let's go to your Blitz charge teams. You do the exact same thing as Stuck here, mashing your best characters together. So obviously Infinity Watch and Weapon X, but here you've got this mishmash of super team, right? You don't need Surfer and Doom and Cloak and all them together. But the idea is that this is creating a team that is very large and is always going to win when you're using your Blitz charges.
Yep, just about putting all those carries back together into the big teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So this makes a lot of sense if you've got a smaller amount of charges. So, that means, for example, Large Falcon is here, not because Falcon's the best character, but because he's one of your largest TCP characters, whatever, one of your largest character powers. So you want to get the largest teams you can make for your Blitz charges, and he's carried by Icarus and Cersei. So really, any characters you put here would win, right?
Yep.
Wow, very, very interesting. I've got to say, guys, this is one of the most interesting, sort of thought-provoking videos that I've done in quite some time. I mean, you guys are such interesting theory crafters, have great knowledge of the game. You said that you guys are on my Discord and talk to folks there. So, and are you guys in the Blitz channel there?
Yeah, most of I'm in there often. Just trying to encourage, and they don't need much encouragement. They're talking it up, and people are sharing. I think people were a little hesitant to share it first, but everybody's encouraging it, and it's a good idea to go there and take a look because you have people posting at 12 million, right? 13 million, and a lot of the player base is around that, so it's very helpful. I did want to mention one thing too that kind of changed a little bit about Blitz, and that can help you. If you have lower characters and you can afford the green ISO, and you have a carry, maybe that's Striker, it's a good idea to drop in one level of Skirmisher on those characters, because it's going to do two things. One, it's going to put up a vulnerable, which increases 10% damage just all around. And then in addition to that, it gives a mark for the striker to take advantage of. So it's a really small thing, not necessary. You don't have to do it, but if you can afford it, it's actually helpful if you have no ISO on somebody.
That is very helpful. I remember you mentioned before in our first video how having ISO on your characters makes a big difference, and I couldn't agree more. Certain ISOs help low-level characters more than others. Like a level, if you've got just level 1 green ISO, at least just getting that vulnerable out is huge. I agree with that 100%. Well, guys, if you do like this video, certainly like this video, subscribe to the channel, but please check out our Discord. Go to the Discord. I'm going to have these teams in the Guides Blitz channel. I will put their teams there, update their teams there. And the original video, their original text-based guide is there as well. And then go to the Blitz channel. You can talk to Stux and Sully yourself. If you want feedback on your teams, you want to discuss teams, that's the place to do it. So please check out the Discord. That's linked below. The Twitch stream is linked below as well.